Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samech Beis Amud Aleph, starting with Samech Aleph Amud Beis at the new Mishnah, the 6th parak. The parak opens up and discusses the Indian of Erev Chatzeros. And we know, as we learned before, that when it comes to a person who wants to then carry from the house to the Chatzer or vice versa, then he must then enjoin the rest of the residences together with an Erev Chatzeros. Says the Mishnah, who could go ahead and live in that Chatzer to then and not allow him to then make that Erev Chatzeros? Hadar im ha'akum bechatzer. If a Jew lives with an akum, with a nachri in the Chatzer, or im misha eino moide be'eruv, or somebody who does not believe in the institution of Eruv. That means he doesn't hold by the words of the Chachamim, that in Eruv there's such a concept of Eruv. Hareze oiser alov. Then he is going to oiser on this Jew from then carrying from the bias to the Chatzer, even if he made an Erev Chatzeros. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov argues, and he says, it's true, they will oiser, but not if it's one Jew. It has to be at least two or more Jews for the akum, or the one who is eino moide be'eruv, to oiser those Jews. As follows: Lo'olam eino oiser ad shnei Yisrael oisin ze al ze. Until you have two Jews that are oiser on each other, mean to say that they would require an Erev Chatzeros together. Only then does the akum, or the one who's not moide be'eruv, will they then oiser the Jews from using the Erev Chatzeros. Who is this person that we're referring to other than the Nochri, the Akum, that is not moide be'eruv? This is referring to the Kuti. The Kuti is somebody, a group of people, of non-Jews who were brought to Eretz Yisrael, to populate Eretz Yisrael and to live there. And there was an epidemic that Kadosh Baruch Hu brought lions. And these Kutim, they decided to convert. And there's a question amongst the Tanoim, is this a conversion that is valid? Is it sincere or not? Al Kopanim, the Kutim, whether it's valid or not, they hold the Torah B'chsav, but they do not follow the Torah Ba'al Peh, the words of the Chachamim. So our Mishnah is stating, according to Tanakama, which is actually Rebbe Meir, that if it's one Kuti or one Nochri that is in the same, sharing the same Chatzer as the Jew, he will oiser the Jew from then carrying from the house to the Chatzer. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says there has to be two or more Jews, and the Gemara explained the reason why they are arguing it. The Mishnah goes on to say that until now we're talking about a Kuti, but the Tanakama also holds, and the Gemara will explain that there are words missing in the Mishnah, that the Tanakama holds that even a Tzeduki will also then oiser the Jew from using the Erev Chatzeros. On that, the Mishnah brings, Omer Rabbi Gamliel says there's a chiluk between a Kuti and a Tzeduki. A Kuti is like a Nachri, and therefore he's oiser the Jew. But a Tzeduki, no, a Tzeduki will not oiser the Jew. And Rabbi Gamliel wants to bring a proof from the following Maisa. Rabbi Gamliel, Maisa b'Tzeduki echod, shahaya dar imanu b'mavui b'Yushalayim. There was a Tzeduki that lived together with us in the same mavui in Yushalayim. V'omar lanu abba, and my father, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the first Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he said to us, Maharu v'hoitziu es hakelim lemavui, bring quickly the kelim into the mavui, ad shelo yoitzi v'yeser aleichem, so that the tzeduki will not come and aser upon you. What is this referring to? We're talking about a case where the tzeduki was mevatil his reshus to the Jews that are in that chotzer, enabling them to then go ahead and use the chotzer with their Erev Chatzeros. In other words, he's no longer part as a resident, because he's mavatal his reshus. So now the Jews can go ahead and use their Erev Chatzeros. So Rabbi Gamliel says, in order for this to then be effective, so that the Tzeduki does not rescind, he does not go ahead and go back on his word of being mevatel his rishus, go take kelim and put it in the mavui. That thereby he will no longer be able to then rescind on what he had said he will do, and therefore it will all belong to the Jewish people in the Chatzar, not the Tzeduki. He was mevatel his rishus. So we see from here, says Rabbi Gamliel, that he has the ability, the Tzeduki, to mevatel his rishus. That means that he does indeed have residency, unlike the Nachri or the Kuti could not go ahead and mevatel their rishus. Omar Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda argues on Rabbi Gamliel and says the version of the incident was different. In fact, the version shows that the Tzeduki is just like the Kuti and the Nachri. Says Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Meloshen Acher. There is a different version of the story. Maharu va'osu tzarcheichem b'mavui. Rabbi Gamliel's father, he instructed the family to go ahead and do their needs, take care of all their needs in the mavui. Ad shelo yoitzi v'yoiser aleichem. It's not going on the tzeduki, but rather on the Shabbos that will come and then oiser upon them. In other words, since it will not help for the tzeduki to mevatel his rishus, so therefore take care of all of your needs before the onset of Shabbos. Because once Shabbos comes in, we no longer can go ahead and use then carrying within the mavui or from the chatzar to the mavui, because the tzeduki is going to oser upon us. We're on the Gemara on Daf Samech Beis Amud Aleph at the very top. Yosef Abaye bar Avin v'Rav Chinana bar Avin. They were sitting together. V'Yosef Abaye gabayu, and Abaye was sitting amongst them. V'Yasbe v'Ka'amre, and they were sitting, and they said the following: Bishlam Rabbi Meir. Bishlam Rabbi Meir, who's the Tanakama of our Mishnah, who says that one Nachri or Kuti is going to oiser the Jew if he shares the same chotzer as the Jew. So he says, Bishlam Rabbi Meir kisavar diras oived koichavim shma dira v'lo yishno chav v'lo yishno trei. So it's good according to Rabbi Meir, who holds that a diras oived koichavim is considered to be a dira. That means he has residency. Therefore, there's no difference between one or two, even if it's just one akum, he will oiser the Jew, because after all, he's now no longer able to he can't join in Ev Chatzeros, because he doesn't have the institution of Ev Chatzeros, and he's not able to be mevatel his reshus. So therefore, he is oiser upon the Jews to use the Ev Chatzeros. Elo Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Mike Sover. But Eliezer ben Yaakov, he says you have to have two akum, two oivdei kachavim, to go ahead and oiser the Jew. So what does he hold? If he holds that the diras oivei kachavim is considered to be a dira, then then he should also oiser, even if it's just one nachri, just like the Tanakama. And if it's not considered to be a dira, there's no residency that he has, then even two should not oiser the Jew. So, Mimanov Shach, why is it that Rabbi Eliezer says that you need two nachri to then oiser the Jew? Answers the Gemara. Before the Gemara answers, the Gemara says, Omar Lu Abaye. Abaye says, even Rabbi Meir is not holding his position because he holds that the diras akum is shma dira. V'so Rabbi Meir diras akum shma dira as Abaye v'hatanya. We have a brayso that says otherwise. Chatzero shel oivei kachavim harehu kedir shel behema. The chatzero of a goy, of a nachri, is going to be considered to be like a deer, like a corral of an animal. In other words, he does not have residency. So now we have to understand from the beginning what is the sheet of Rabbi Meir and what is the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Why is it that Rabbi Meir says that you can have one akum to oiser the Jews from their Ev Chatzeros, whereas Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov requires two? What's the understanding of these machlekes? Says the Gemara, Ella de kuli alma diras akum loishma dira. Everybody holds the diras akum loishma dira. So what is the machlekes? Explains the Gemara. V'hacha begezeira shema yilmad mimaisav kamifliki. There's a machlekes because over here our Tanoim, both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, hold that the sages made a gezeira. They didn't want that a Jew should live together with a nachri in the same chatzir. So in order to discourage them, they said that you cannot go ahead and use your Erev Chatzeros if you share the same Chatzar with them. So what's the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, whether it's one akum or two akum? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov sover kiven the oivei kechavim chashud ashvichus damim, since the Nachri is suspect to be shoifech damim. So therefore, he says that one person would never live, one Jew would never live with an oivei kechavim, because he would be concerned that he would get killed. And therefore, it's something that would not warrant a gezerah, because not something that's common. Trei de shchichi de dairi gazu behu chad lo shchiach loy gazu behu rabbanan. The rabbanan only made their gezerah that the akum is oiser on the Jew if it's going to be two or more Jews. Because if it's one Jew, since it's not common that a Jew will live with a nachri alone, therefore they didn't make a gezerah. It's not shchiach. When it's two or more Jews, then they made their gezerah. Rabbi Meir Sovar Zimnin de Mikri Vidayer. Rabbi Meir says, still sometimes even one Jew may live with an akum, whereby that akum will oiser the chatzar upon that Jew. V'om Rabbanon ein eruv moyel b'makom akum vein bito v'shuz moyel b'makom akum. And the Chacham said that the akum cannot join in Erev Chatzeros, and they also cannot have the strength, the koyach, to then be mavatel the reshus. As we said, they don't even have a reshus. Ad sheyaskir. So therefore, they said that the only way that they're able to go ahead and allow the Jew to then use the chatzar is if they're maskir, if they do a schirus, they rent out, at least symbolically, their part of the chatzar. Va'akum mugar, and the akum does not want to do that. So it comes out over here that the gezerah is that the sages wanted to discourage a Jew from living together in the same chatzar as a nachri. Therefore, they said that the nachri will prevent a Jew from using his chatzar to be able to carry from the bayis to the chatzar. Since the Jew does not want to then have the inability to carry from the chatzar to the bayis or vice versa, because that would be very inconvenient. Therefore, he would be then encouraged not to live in the same chatzar that he's sharing with a nachri. Only the machlokes in Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is it one Jew or is it more than one Jew? Rabbi Meir says that one Jew is enough to have the nachri oiser, because even though it's not shchiach, it's still a concern. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, no, since it's not shchiach, we don't make a gezerah, because a milsa do shchicha lo gozu bo rabbanan, only when there's two or more Jews do they make a gezerah. Now it comes out that the only way that a Jew who will be able to use then the Erev Chatzeros, to use then the carrying from the bayis to the chatzar, is going to be if he then rents out, at least symbolically, to the nachri. And it says over here that the nachri will not want to then rent out his reshus. So therefore it will be very difficult for the Jew to then go ahead and utilize the chatzar on Shabbos. Asking him more in my time, what's the reason why he will not want to rent out his chatzar? If you're going to say because he's concerned that the Jew will then machzik in his reshus, that's good according to the one who says that schirus is a strong schirus. But the one who says that we require a weak type of schirus, so what are you going to say? That's a machlokes amongst the Amoraim. Do we say it's a schirus bria or schirus ru'ua? The Itmar, Rav Chizda Omar schirus bria, Rav Sheshes Omar schirus ru'ua. So we see that there's an opinion that says schirus ru'ua. So if it's a schirus ru'ua, why would then that not work? Explains the Gemara, what is a schirus bria and what is a schirus ru'ua? My ru'ua or my bria? Ilema bria bit pruta, the ru'ua bit pachad mishava pruta. If you want to say the distinction is that a schirus bria, a strong schirus, means with a pruta or more, but a schirus ru'ua is something considered to be something that's not with a pruta, it's less than a shava pruta. Then ask the Gemara, even an akum hold that less than a shava pruta you can make a kinyan with. they hold it significant, as the Gemara will explain. Does anybody hold that less than a shava pruta is insignificant for the akum? He sent a halacha named Rabbi Yochanan from Eretz Yisrael. You should know you can go ahead and rent to the akum even with less than a shava pruta. So we see that it's significant, a less than a shava pruta, and therefore a schirus ru'ua would also then be something that has significance. And he said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ben Noyach Neherag al Pochim Shava Pruta V'lo Nitzin LaShovan. And the Nochri, the Ben Noyach, he would even be killed for stealing even less than a Shava Pruta. He doesn't have the ability to return the object that he stole, unlike the Jew, and therefore he will be accountable for his stealing as a capital crime. So we're left with the question, what is the reason, the distinction, and why is it that the Gentile, the Nachri, will not want to give schirus to the Jew? Ela beria b'moharke u'ba'aborgene v'ru'a b'loi moharke v'aborgene. The difference is that a schirus beria means that the Jew would be able to then take his chairs and his benches out into the chotzer, into the area where he was kind of the schirus, with schirus, whereas Ru'eh would not be able to. So then Gemara says that again, it's a machloikis. Hanicha lamanda amar schirus b'riya ba'inon. They require a schirus that be strong schirus. In this case, it means that we're explaining that he allows the Jew to take benches and chairs and put it into the chotzer. But according to the other Manda Omar, why wouldn't he be then maskir the reshus? Says the Gemara, afilu hachi chayish akum likshofim v'loy mugar. Still, the akum is concerned that the Jew who's renting from the akum, he's doing so for kshofim, for sorcery, and therefore the Nachri, the akum, does not want to be maskir his area to the Jew because he sees there's no value. He's obviously not doing anything of significance. It must be he's doing some sort of witchcraft, sorcery. So on that, the akum does not want to then rent out to the Jew. The Gemara now brings the following statement that we had before. Gufa. We brought the statement that Rabbi Meir had said that the chotzer of an ovei kechavim is considered to be like a corral of an animal, implying that he doesn't have reshus, he doesn't have residency. And it would be permissible to bring in and out. Let's say a Jew that was not living in that chotzer, he can bring in and out from the chotzer to the batim, and the batim to the chotzer. He can do that. Because after all, the reshus of the akum is not going to then aser on the batim. V'im yesh sham Yisrael echod oiser. However, Rabbi Meir goes on to say, if there is one Jew, then the akum will oiser on him. Di Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov oimer. He says, no, la'olam eino oiser. Ad sh'yu shnei Yisraelim oisim zeh al zeh. In order to then be oiser, each on the other, then you have to have two Jews that are living in those houses in the batim. Then, since they require an Erev Chatzeros, then the Gentile will then oiser them using their Erev Chatzeros.